All right, guys, this is car pickup line presentation number 2 of the presentation that I gave this summer in Greensboro at the Cosmic Summit 2024. And before I get into the Psuedo-Carolina Bays, we do need to talk about what the Carolina Bays, the real Carolina Bays, are. These are very unique landforms found all across North America, specifically in unconsolidated sediment, like in the coastal plain of the East Coast, as well as all the way out in Nebraska and Kansas. Now, the uniqueness of the Carolina Bays is in their elliptical shapes. These are mathematically precise. They are identical to each other. That ellipse is very telling that you're looking at genuine Carolina Bays. They all have raised sandy rims, especially the well-defined Carolina Bays. There are some ghost Carolina Bays where the rims have been eroded away, which we can focus on at some point, but they do have raised rims and sunken centers, and so that's very characteristic of almost every single Carolina Bay. And they have a radial orientation towards the Great Lakes, where if you start off from New Jersey and go all the way down around, through the Carolinas into Georgia, all the way over in Alabama, Mississippi, they're not quite as prevalent there, but there you can find some, and then all the way up through Kansas and Nebraska. Again, that radial orientation, all pointing back to the Great Lakes. That's very specific. As far as the numbers of them, the Wikipedia page is still wrong. It still says that there's over 500,000 of these Carolina Bays found here in North America. The actual number is closer to 60 to 70,000 of them that have actually been identified, labeled, and marked on the Ovoid Basin Survey, like the old Carolina Bay Survey. And they go by lots of names. Carolina Bays is one of the more popular names, and that's why we tend to refer to them as Carolina Bays. But in Maryland, they're known as the Maryland Basins. We have the Delmarva Bays. We have the Pecosins. And then, of course, we have the Nebraska Rainwater Basins out in Nebraska. And so they go by lots of different names. But, again, we will tend to call them Carolina Bays until they can be reclassified as secondary impact basins. That's kind of the goal. Now, these Carolina Bays were not first discovered because they were used for thousands of years by the Native Americans. These were a really good resource for them. These low swampy areas was a great place to find waterfowl, and we find lots of evidence in the rims of the Carolina Bays of them using the raised sandy rims as camp platforms. So it's not like we discovered these recently, but the first time that they were identified as being Carolina Bays was back in the 1930s. And it was actually back in 1930 where they were doing aerial studies, really trying to help out agriculture. This was during the Great Depression, and they were trying to, now we had the capabilities to get high enough into the sky with the use of airplanes, and then take photographs of the ground. And as we can see from the picture above right here, these were fascinating. People finally able to see that, wow, there are a bunch of these elliptical shapes all over the place down here in Cape Fear. That's where that was taken, Cape Fear, North Carolina. And that's why the term Carolina Bays became so prevalent. And obviously, when they first saw these images, people automatically assumed that this must have some kind of cosmic origin, more than likely meteor shower or impacts that led to a lot of questions about what caused or what created these Carolina Bays. And people came from all around trying to find the meteorites that possibly created these Carolina Bays. If these were craters, then we should be able to find the asteroid fragment or the meteor fragments that created them. But they didn't really find anything, and so that led to us trying to find a more gradualistic explanation for the Carolina Bays. If it wasn't something that happened by an impact, then it had to have been something that occurred over a really, really, really long time. And so ever since then, there has been a back and forth between a terrestrial explanation or uniformitarianism versus a cosmic or catastrophic explanation for the origin of these Carolina Bays. And, back in the 30s, they were looking at a cosmic origin. Didn't find any meteorites. Well, it must be wind and water. And so we have lots of papers that went back and forth early on, all the way through in the 30s and the 40s and the 50s and the 60s. And it's still going on today. Obviously we still have the academic side of this conversation, and they are leaning towards a gradualistic explanation. And then you've got guys like myself and Antonio Zamora and Michael Davies and George Howard and that are leaning towards a cosmic impact, and we're finding good evidence for that. Again, it's back and forth. And make no mistake about it, this is still a mystery. This has not been solved. A good hypothesis is a testable hypothesis. And as of right now, neither side has been able to really nail down and prove one hypothesis or the other. And that's why we're doing this today. That's why this presentation is being made, and that's why Antonio Zamora and I are going to be presenting at the Cosmic Summit again this summer. I presented the past 2 years, and now we're going to let Antonio present his side of this story, and hopefully we can inch this thing forward. The whole purpose of us creating these videos and for us to do what we're doing is to push the science of these Carolina Bays forward and get these questions answered, because the current hypothesis, the current academically accepted hypothesis, is not cutting it, and that's why we're doing this. All right, so when we come back, I'll hit some more of this presentation. Appreciate you guys watching, and we'll catch you next time.